Welcome back to Paranormally Correct. We've got another ghost picture to look at today. I'm calling this one the hallway ghost. So here's the backstory on this picture, and I'm just taking this straight from a website. I'll link it in the description if you want to check that out. So here we go. An investigation of a reportedly haunted residence in Sacramento recently yielded some intriguing evidence. Paul Dale Roberts and colleagues from Halo Paranormal Investigations headed out to the home of Shula Jackson on the weekend after being asked to help look into reports of paranormal activity. Jackson, who lives at the property with her husband and 3 children, had been plagued by unexplained occurrences that have included waking up to see an old man standing over her bed, hearing strange knocking sounds, and encountering smoke and black orbs in her home. Over the course of 2 one-hour investigations at the property, Paul and his team reported a significant amount of unusual activity, including sightings of a shadowy figure. Perhaps most intriguing of all, however, was a photograph taken by investigator Angela Chessnutt, which shows what the team claims is an actual shadow person standing at the end of the hallway. But is this really a shadow person? We're going to figure it out, and we're going to start by making some observations. The first thing you probably notice in this photo is that there's a lot of overexposure and underexposure, so a lot of really bright lights and really dark shadows. The entity in question is pretty heavily concealed in shadow and subsequently the darkest points of the photo. So the first thing we want to do is brighten the photo up some and take another look at it. And once we do that, a lot more detail and a whole lot more clues are going to be revealed. Observation number 1, the scale and dimension of the entity becomes more clear. Observation 2, we can see that the entity is probably mostly opaque, at least it looks that way. And observation 3, now this one's a little bit trickier. You kind of have to know what you're looking for a little bit with photos like this. And if you look really close, you can see it. There are some artifacts in this photo, namely some blue streaks and some red splotches. And these are very important, so make a mental note of them and we'll come back to them and this information in just a minute. Before we do that, I want to ask you guys, what do you think about this photo right now, looking at it here the way it is? Leave me a comment and let me know. Okay, so there are 2 things we know about this photo at this point. Number 1, it's not the shadow of one of the investigators. You can kind of see which direction the shadows are running in the picture. So this one's a little bit of a no-brainer. So there's most likely no way that a shadow projected at that angle from one of the other investigators at the end of the hall, or, even if they were standing in one of the rooms, it's not a shadow for sure, because again, look at the direction the shadows are running in. Number 2, and this is definitely the most important one, this is not digital manipulation. Whatever this thing is, it was in the photo when the camera shuttered, and it's a whole lot darker than the rest of the shadows in the other parts of the picture. And here's how we can tell. Going back to the blue lines and the red splotches, did you know that in digital photography, artifacts like this don't just happen for no reason? There's actually a really specific reason for these types of things, and the blue line in particular. Being that the blue lines or streaks, whatever you want to call them, intersect with the darkest section of this photo, we can tell immediately that whatever this entity is, it's so dark the camera couldn't calculate it, basically. And based on the kind of camera you're using, because this will vary a little bit from camera to camera for a whole lot of factors that aren't really all that important right now, some cameras won't be able to see certain areas of a composition well enough to expose them properly. And a lot of times we end up with dead pixels in the image because there's just not enough visual information for the camera to properly expose all parts of the image. So essentially the blue spots are telling us that there aren't enough values in this image because certain pixels were pushed way beyond their limit. It literally can't see what is in this part of the shadow. And when the photo was shot, this entity was so pure dark maybe a little bit in part because of the shadows in the hall, maybe not. But the black information was lost along the way. So anywhere that you see these blue lines in a dark spot, it means that there's loss of dark value. And hopefully that makes sense. I hope that I'm explaining this clearly and concisely so that you know what I'm talking about. Incidentally, the red splotches, they're kind of the opposite because they're indicative of loss of highlight area detail. And we have that in this photo too. However, if you see a blue streak in a bright area of a photo or a red one in a dark area, that's a whole other story, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Anyway, I think the best way to demonstrate this, if you guys don't mind, I would like to make my own shadow ghost in a dark hallway as close as I can get it with stock images. So let's do that real quick, and then we're going to compare the two pictures, and hopefully that will kind of help you see what's going on here. So what you can see me doing here is just showing you once the fabricated shadow picture is created, then I kind of raise up the exposure and all the levels and show you the difference in a fake picture and the one that we've been talking about in this video. And you'll notice that it's tremendously smoother and it just looks fake. It just has a perfect fake look to it. And of course there are always ways to fabricate a good hoax, but in this circumstance I really believe that the picture we've been taking a look at in this video is not edited, not manipulated in any way at all. And I think it's highly likely that this is an authentic picture of a shadow person.